Why do we make the decision to draw every day? I think it usually comes from a place of having a want for more consistency with our drawing practice, to improve, to get to that goal, our North Star. That goal of ours that gives us hope. Hope that if we draw more, draw every day, put in more hours, we'll get there faster. That North Star gets us excited for all the possibilities that wait for us when we get there. That studio job, that client, and especially that skill. That skill that could let these stories that have taken residence in our minds for years be turned into illustrations or graphic novels. To become both the writer and the artist of your stories. The skill that seems so glamorous, wonderful, and perfect. But no one ever told us about the in-between, or the burnout that could happen if we don't think through our art practice properly. We start excited for a journey, having the destination clearly in our minds, and the feeling of freedom because you're not hindered by your skill. But no one talks much about the day-to-day of getting there. No one talked about the mundane parts, the practice, sharpening pencils every morning for a good session, making sure you have enough paper to use for the day, make sure your needed eraser won't just disappear 20 minutes in your session. Not a lot of people really talk about that. So we're under the assumption that if we just draw more, draw relentlessly, draw every day, we'd get there sooner. Eventually. This middle part of our art journey, the practice part of it, is often overlooked, as if speeding through it is the key to getting to that dream skill. But what if the goal we had was never meant to come as a big announcement? What if this practice period in our art journey didn't have to feel like we needed to rush through it? What if the practice we're doing right now is already promising that North Star, and we only had to keep moving to get to it? When we plant a seed, we celebrate its growth every day, no matter how small. We check to see the progress. We water that seedling every day, care for it, make sure the soil is just right, make sure that it's getting enough sun, that it's planted in the right season. In the moment, we knew that seedling that we consistently took care of will eventually grow into a tree, something bigger than what it is now. But why is it that when it comes to our art practice, we rarely have this mentality? Why is it that when we sit down to draw, we don't really focus on enjoying the art practice itself in the moment, and we're distracted with the destination, distracted with the skill that we really want to achieve? I used to draw every day because I was driven by fear. Fear that if I stopped drawing every single day of my week, I would never get to that skill that I wanted to achieve. But one way or another, life gets in the way. At the time, I confused overworking myself with discipline. I was doing more than what I physically could at the time to prove that I am an artist, as if drawing relentlessly would make me one. I was desperate to be able to feel worthy of calling myself an artist. So my solution was to draw every day without consideration for my own health, which I know is pretty dumb, but I'll get to that in a moment. I think the advice draw every day really meant draw consistently. Realistically speaking, we can't really always draw every day with the same productivity levels. Life can get in the way. Yes, you're an artist, but you're also a person that may be needed elsewhere sometimes, away from the easel. I don't really believe in draw every day anymore. I follow drawing consistently, prioritizing quality practice time paired with consistent practice. Let me make this clear. Drawing consistently doesn't mean you have to draw every day. The phrase itself holds pressure, that if you stop drawing for a day, you'll lose all that you worked hard for, but that was never the case. You just needed to build a proper system with the right mindset to be able to draw consistently, to achieve reaching that North Star. Don't confuse overworking yourself with discipline. If you overwork yourself, you don't listen to your body and your mind's need for rest. That isn't discipline, it's punishment. That work ethic is driven by you not trusting yourself enough to get back to that work after a rest. So, you want to make it a goal to trust yourself enough that you'll show up eventually to draw, after a busy period outside of drawing. Discipline is an act of trusting yourself to do something again when you're ready. But what does consistency look like, Natalie? Well, in my opinion, consistency is having a minimum amount of hours in a week that you want to spend drawing, and a mindset that if you didn't meet that, it's okay, because your reason for doing so is valid. So how do you build a weekly routine, or how do you start building a weekly routine? Well, you need to set a bare minimum amount of hours spent practicing this week. I advise you to take into consideration the time windows you can draw and set this goal to a very low minimum. I personally have a weekly goal of at least 4 hours of focused drawing each week. Sometimes I hit it, sometimes I don't, but it's okay, because I know I'll eventually come back to the easel when I'm ready. So here are some options you have when deciding when is the best time of the week for you to draw. Option 1. Recognize your drawing rhythm or drawing stamina. In the beginning, you want to recognize your own drawing rhythm. I used to think more hours in a drawing day meant more progress, but the quality of your drawing sessions matter way more than simply drawing more. Let me repeat that. The quality of your drawing sessions matter way more than simply drawing more. What use is it to draw for 15 hours a day when you're only most productive and hyper-focused for 4 hours? Or 2? Remember, you have to listen to your own capabilities. This isn't a race about who gets more hours in for drawing. It's about who practices consistently with proper focus. Option 2. Identify the best time of day or when you feel the creativity hitting. For some odd reason, and I don't really recall when it started, but I feel the most sharp and motivated to draw when the clock strikes 4 p.m. Exactly 4 p.m. It might be a different time of day for you. Some people say they're more creative when they're tired, others are best when they have full energy. So it really depends on your personal energy levels. Option 3. Choose the time that's most convenient. If you have some spare time after work or after class, set a timer for the amount of hours or minutes you can spend with focused drawing. I won't tell you to draw for X amount of minutes or hours after work or class because I don't want you to be under the assumption that you have to fill in that set amount of time I set for you. I want you to decide what's the most doable amount of time you can set for drawing after work or class. You should have this freedom not because you can spend more hours on drawing after an exhausting day at work, but for you to listen to what you can physically do for your drawing practice. If you're too exhausted and you just can't draw, listen to your body and rest. But if you're not satisfied with that, drawing circles or lines on a page could relax your nerves. Drawing for at least 5 to 10 minutes after an exhausting day usually gets my own guilt for not drawing out of the way. And who knows, maybe it could work for you. There may come a time like an extremely busy week and you're itching to put some drawing practice in, so you might have to adjust your schedule to get some practice. In my case, my class hours are awkwardly sandwiched between the morning and the evening, and there's a very little window of time for me to be able to draw, do homework, and work on YouTube. So sometimes, when I just need some hours or half an hour with quiet drawing practice, I wake up earlier than usual. It might sound brutal, and it sort of is, but it's actually how I make myself relax. There's something special about the quiet of the early morning and the scratches of a pencil, where it's just you, drawing, before a busy day at work or school. It's a necessary time for me to relax because school can be incredibly hectic. To summarize what I just said in this video, I want you to figure out the best amount of time you can use for drawing each week, figure out your so-called drawing stamina, how long you can go for drawing while avoiding burnout, and always never disregard your efforts, no matter how big or small. When you focus on building sustainable drawing habits and not just drawing every day, being mindful of your practice, it won't feel like you're in a rush anymore. You start to enjoy your art practice because now you trust yourself enough that you'll come back to the easel, no matter how busy it gets. That you're an artist, even when you're not drawing.